Have you ever heard the sound of an entire ticketing algorithm completely breaking down in real time? Because that is exactly what is echoing through the posh corporate offices of the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix right now. Welcome back to Courtside Classic, everyone. It is your girl Mira here, and today we are diving headfirst into a commercial earthquake that is shaking the women's tour to its absolute core. Grab your tea, settle in, and let's talk about the phenomenon that the tennis establishment is desperately trying and failing to keep under control. We are talking about the one and only Alex Eala, and how a simple injury withdrawal just turned a polite European clay court tournament into the hottest, most cutthroat ticket on the planet. Let us set the scene. Stuttgart, April, a prestigious WTA 500 event packed with 7 of the top 10 players in the world. We are talking Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, Elena Rybakina. It is the kind of star-studded field that tournament organizers dream about. The winner gets a massive check and literally drives away in a brand new Porsche 911. It is old money, it is tradition, and it is usually very predictable. But then the script flipped. China's Zheng Qinwen, an absolute powerhouse, was forced to withdraw due to injury. Now you have to understand how the WTA handles these things. They put out a standard, incredibly dry corporate statement. They posted something along the lines of, "Unfortunately, Qinwen has to withdraw, but fans can now look forward to seeing Alexandra step in." It was polite. It was procedural. It was the kind of sanitized PR speak that completely ignores the absolute hurricane they just invited into their arena. Because what they casually announced was that world number 46, Alex Eala, was bypassing the alternate list and stepping directly into the main draw. And let me tell you, within minutes of that announcement, the business calculus of professional tennis began shifting in ways the WTA was simply not prepared for. While the tournament organizers were calmly updating their little draw sheets, Filipino fans across 3 continents were mobilizing. They were not just looking forward to it, as the PR tweet suggested. They were taking out their credit cards, coordinating international travel from across Germany and beyond, and preparing to turn the Porsche Arena into the latest battleground of the Eala effect. If you ask me, the sheer panic in the ticketing offices must have been glorious to witness. Because the institutional tennis world operates on a very simple, very outdated premise. Higher rankings equal higher revenue. To them, a top 10 star dropping out and being replaced by a player ranked outside the top 40 should mean disappointed local fans, refund requests, and softer sales. But Alex Eala's fan base has spent this entire season proving that dusty old tennis math catastrophically wrong. We saw this exact same circus unfold at Indian Wells. Do you remember the absolute chaos? When Eala's matches were scheduled in the California desert, resale prices for certain sessions exploded past the $1,000 mark. I am going to repeat that so it sinks in. Over $1,000. And this was not for a Serena Williams retirement match. This was not for a Grand Slam final. This was for a rising, grinding Filipino player fighting her way through the early rounds. Fans who recognized the pattern early reported seeing baseline ticket listings triple within hours of the draw confirmations. Those prices were not driven by tennis rankings. They were driven by an incredibly passionate diaspora, willing to pay literally whatever it costs to watch one of their own compete on the biggest stages. And if the WTA thought Indian Wells was a fluke, Linz came along weeks later and slapped them with reality. Reports from that tournament indicated that approximately 90% of the tickets for Eala's matches were snatched up by Filipino fans. 90%. Sessions that would normally see modest, quiet, midweek attendance became standing room only, deafening experiences. The Eala army did not just show up to politely clap, they took over the venue, they transformed it. And honestly, it is the best thing to happen to crowd energy in women's tennis in years. But here is the wild part about Stuttgart, the timeline compression. On Monday, Eala was listed as Zheng's replacement. By Wednesday, the draw was released. By Friday, the opening weekend sessions begin. That means this massive global fan base had exactly 72 hours to secure access to what they now view as absolute appointment viewing. And if Indian Wells and Linz taught these tournament directors anything, It is that 72 hours is more than enough time for the Eala effect to completely reshape an event's commercial landscape. Now let us talk about the draw itself, because the tennis gods definitely have a sense of humor, and they know exactly what they are doing when it comes to ratings. Alex Eala's first-round opponent in Stuttgart is none other than Leylah Fernandez. Let that sink in. You have a lefty versus lefty battle, but the narrative runs so much deeper than forehands and backhands. This is Leylah Fernandez, the fiery, fiercely competitive player of Filipino-Canadian descent, stepping onto the clay to face the player who is literally representing the Philippines itself. It is the diaspora versus the homeland. It is a family reunion wrapped in a turf war. Philippine sports media is already losing their minds over this, framing it as way more than just a first-round match. It is a massive cultural moment. Personally, I think Leylah has the experience on these big European stages, but you absolutely cannot discount the fire Eala is playing with right now. When Eala looks up into the stands and sees a sea of flags, she morphs into a different player. This matchup guarantees maximum fan investment, and the television ratings in Southeast Asia are going to be completely off the charts. We also have to look at the mental toughness of this 20-year-old. Just days earlier, Eala suffered a really stinging loss to Jelena Ostapenko in the second round at Linz. Eala was leading in the second set. She had chances to force a decider, but she just could not close the door, dropping it 4-6, 5-7. It was an early clay court exit that could have easily derailed her momentum, just as the most important surface stretch of the season was kicking off. But did she post a bunch of excuses on social media? Did she complain about the draw, or the lighting, or the surface transition? No. Within 48 hours of that loss, she packed her bags and was on a plane to Stuttgart, hyper-focused and ready to capitalize on a main draw opportunity that most players ranked 46 will never, ever see. That is the mentality of a champion, and frankly, it is the mentality of a player who knows she has an entire nation riding on her back. This brings us to the uncomfortable truth that the WTA is being forced to confront. Steve Flink, an incredible tennis analyst who has been covering the women's tour for decades, recently put it perfectly. He noted that emerging players with deep national support are fundamentally changing how tournaments measure star power. Credentials and trophies do not tell the whole story anymore. Gate receipts do. By every traditional metric, sitting at world number 46, Alex Eala should be the least commercially significant player in this ridiculously stacked Stuttgart draw. But traditional measures have been absolutely obsolete since the moment her fans realized a very powerful secret. They can turn literally any tournament on earth into a home crowd simply by buying enough tickets faster than anyone else. They have weaponized their fandom, and it is brilliant. And the corporate world is catching on much faster than the tennis purists. Look at the financial ecosystem surrounding this girl. Nike is reportedly circling long-term, massive sponsorship deals. Huge domestic giants like BPI and Globe Telecom are doubling down on their endorsements. Massive consumer brands like Juice and Milo are heavily leveraging her ambassador status across massive Southeast Asian markets. The money is flowing as if she is already a top 10 player because, commercially speaking, she is. Her market power has completely divorced itself from her ranking. When market power diverges from rankings, the tours and the tournaments have no choice but to follow the money. They might pretend it is all about the points, but at the end of the day, tennis is a business, and Alex Eala is currently one of their most lucrative assets. So, what does this mean for the rest of the season? The clay swing is only just beginning. Stuttgart leads directly into Madrid, then Rome, and ultimately the grand prize, Roland Garros. 3 massive events where ticket demand is going to face the exact same stress test if Eala keeps advancing. You better believe that the tournament directors in Spain and Italy are watching Stuttgart this week with a very close eye and probably a little bit of sweat on their brows. The French Open draw is only 6 weeks away. If this momentum continues through the European clay swing, the commercial implications are going to bleed out of just ticket sales and start affecting broadcast rights, sponsor activation zones, and exactly how the WTA prioritizes scheduling. Are they going to keep putting a massive draw like Eala on court 14? Not if the fans keep breaking the ticket servers. The pattern is no longer speculation. It is documented, it is repeatable, and it is accelerating at a terrifying pace. Alex Eala did not just receive a lucky main draw spot in Germany because of an injury. She triggered the newest chapter in a story the old guard has been desperately trying to ignore. A 20-year-old is single-handedly rewriting the commercial rules of women's sports, one sold-out, screaming session at a time. The institutional tennis world measures success in ranking points and silver trophies, but the Eala army measures success in flags flown, tickets secured, and the undeniable, deafening proof that their movement is simply too big to be dismissed. The real question now is, do the Stuttgart organizers fully understand what is about to hit the Porsche arena when Eala steps onto that court to face Fernandez? Or are they going to join the organizers at Indian Wells and Linz in the growing, embarrassed list of tournaments that vastly underestimated what happens when an entire nation shows up to a tennis match? If you think Stuttgart is the peak of this story, you are out of your mind. The road to Paris is long, and every single European tournament between here and Roland Garros is about to get a crash course in the Eala economy. That is all for today's deep dive, but I want to hear from you guys. Will Eala's fan base send the Stuttgart ticket prices into the exact same stratosphere they hit at Indian Wells? Or will this finally be the event where the WTA steps up and admits that the Eala effect is the real deal? Drop your spiciest predictions down in the comments below. I will be reading all of them. Do not forget to smash that like button, subscribe to Courtside Classic for all the unfiltered tennis truth, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time, keep your eyes on the court.